Alright guys, so I wouldn't call this my survival bow. I wouldn't say that it was any of that, but at the same time, I was kind of making something, and well, let's just see here. Target number one from the other side of the room, around 20 feet, guys. A little high. In fact, I find that it quite easily will shoot really high without any trouble at all, and quite easily shoot really straight. So let me take a classic position here, aim correctly, and it hit my hand and came off a little to the right. What I need is a proper arrow rest here, and I actually have one set up to the left. So I'm going to flip the whole bow around in my hand and use a very different grip than what I was, but because I'm still, there we go, at least I hit it. But what I'm looking at here is a stack of carbon fiber and fiberglass, and it's a really weak stack, and I'm going to show it to you guys in a minute. In addition, and that's bang on straight, like that came on so straight perfectly to where I aimed. So as you can see, I'm firing a fair number of shots here, but I'm not picking up a lot of misses. I'm actually doing the other thing, where the vast majority of shots are hitting with no trouble. What's shocking me is that it's very weak. Very, very weak. I made a very thin setup. This is such a weak carbon fiber rod, I don't recommend it. But then I used one of these yellow landscaping ones that are fiberglass underneath, and this is from a fishing rod. And I could use this as well. Now, the trick is, it's not much. In fact, the brace height is just about right. It's 8 inches, and it's actually pretty good. I can't complain for something I just threw together. It's not crazy high feet per second, but considering it'll knock down targets that weigh, you know, 300-400 grams, which is the pillow, it'll launch the 24 feet across this room like it was nothing. And even when it hit my hand, that hit my hand pretty hard and came off across, because I don't have an arrow rest. In fact, like I said, I had built one in, so I'm going to try and use it here. But I find it's on the wrong side of the bow. So I'm actually going to draw this one correctly. That is, I'm going to draw it left-handed and see. Oh yeah, perfect. A little slow because it came off a little, I was a little nervous about firing it off there, but a little low, but it's not bad. But I find if I try not to use the brace at all, and I just grab the bow about in the middle where it's comfortable and fire it off the right hand side, I'm a little more accurate with it, but it's incredibly weak. Now, I had some designs for ones that would work like this and be pretty good, and this is technically the first prototype, and it actually works pretty good. If I were to use a proper weight arrow, this is actually quite heavy, guys. This is the heaviest part of a carbon fiber fishing rod, which means it's really not that heavy, but it's probably right around 28-30 grams, somewhere in there. It makes it a pretty heavy arrow. I have other things that I could fire, technically, but none of them are this bad. So I wanted to give it a good test. So these have these ridges on them. And as they pass over my finger, not only do they scratch a little bit and kind of hurt a little, but it's no big deal. There's no blood. I just try to put those so they're not on the inside, so that the side I'm shooting is smooth against the bow. And even then, it has bumps that it passes by, and they can throw it off. If you look from my perspective, that just jumped over to the right really hard as soon as it hit that. So this is far from what I would call a good arrow, but it has the correct length, just barely, for me to get full draw on it. And even still, I mean, it's got good accuracy. When I get a good shot, it's got good accuracy. It will pull good force without me putting a lot of effort. I mean, it's got some actual snap. Listen to that again. Now, take a look at the pull I can put on it without actually hurting it. I mean, it's got some pretty substantial pull. So I could make a better arrow. So what I want to do is just kind of show you this, because I've been working on a couple of things, and I have basically a prototype in mind for a few different bows. This wasn't one of them. I just wanted to see if I could make one useful with these crappy little things, because I put one together with just those, and it was so weak it wasn't really useful, but you could still hear a little snap. But this one, as you pull progressively farther back, it quickly doubles its pull force from here, then triples, then quadruples. It starts, you know, I wouldn't even call it, oh, maybe a pound. It is at 1 inch. But by the time you get to 8-inch draw or 10-inch or 12-inch draw, you're looking about a 12-pound bow, 14-pound bow. But by the time you get back to, you know, a 20-inch draw, you're looking a lot stronger, and you can really reef on this one. And one of the reasons you can is because what I've used is carbon fiber flexible studs out of an umbrella. And so they give me this little tie off here, as you can see, and they give me a place to kind of do one of these and add another loop. And so if the height of this isn't sitting quite correct, I can just take loops and add them in and kind of adjust the bow until I get the brace height that I want. And it works very well and gives me a nice strong bow, but it's really weak. And so strong bow is a bit of an overstatement, but at the same time, it does work, and it works well enough to get really good power and well enough to make really good impact on the back of my wrist. In fact, any more than that, and I would hesitate to put a beginner behind it, because when you're at full pull, this is looking right around 24, 25 pounds more than likely. And I got to tell you, if it's an 18-pound, it's the most lively 18-pounder I've ever heard of or seen. But these carbon fiber sections that I've used are actually really, really strong, guys. When you take them in a really short length like this, they are actually quite stiff, you guys. Incredibly stiff. Very, very stiff stuff. When you take them in a full length piece, they're very weak. So what I did was I took 2 pieces, laid them up over top of each other with an 8-inch overlap that goes past my handle by a little bit. So it's actually more like a 14-inch overlap. Then taped those together. Then added a third one inside of that was shorter, that only runs from here to here. That is my brace. And then on top of that, this yellow landscaping one, I've run inside of that, so that there's actually some progressive stiffness increase that's pretty significant. And once you're starting to bend that, you're actually looking at a little bit of power. Now, the reason I went with these guys for limbs is because everybody knows you want fast, light tips. This actually gives pretty good arrow speed for its crappy poundage. Normally, this would be doing maybe 50, 40 feet per second, but this little sucker, I swear to you, with this heavy arrow, I was getting actually some pretty good speeds on some of these shots. And I watched it zip across that 24 foot in way less than a second. Well, it should be able to if it was a 35-pound bow. But at this poundage, I didn't expect that. Now, I don't have any way to measure this, but I've done a ton of archery. And I'm telling you right now, when I'm at full draw, this is just barely right around 21, 22 pounds. When I'm at absolute full crank, I could go up to 30. I could pull 30 pounds on this bow if I really wanted, because you really can pull back hard enough. I'm guessing it'd be right around there, because right when I get to this point, if I just let it go, I mean, it's got a fair bit of stiffness there. Now, I could take my string, pop it off, and do some twisting to make it stiffer. I could do a few other things. I could let it slack and then reinforce these with another piece and then let it out, and that would work. But I actually didn't want that. I wanted the tips of the limbs to be the very most flexible, speedy material I can get, progressively stiffening in from there. So I have a design for that, and I'm actually going to show it to you guys. I also have a design for a totally different type of bow. Now, this guy is flexible, but nowhere near as flexible. And what I want to do is I want to cut it down the middle and epoxy half
to one of these carbon rods and half to another carbon rod that I have that is identical, and then take the two of those and do the same thing with this, where I install them into a brace. So I'll show you what I mean. Into a, sorry, not a brace, a riser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my riser out of this guy. So I'm talking about at least 3 bows here. So I've got a good carbon fiber hockey stick. Only this one, I have a bunch of these, about a dozen. And this is by far the most flexible of the ones that I have. So much so that when you lean on it, you can see the flex. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to measure out the exact center of this. I am going to use it in this fashion. So I'm going to set it up to be this way. I'm going to take out what I want, cut out the sides, and leave myself with just the hollow slat top and bottom on both sides. I'm going to insert into the middle of this a wooden block that fits it perfect, bang that into place, and then epoxy it. Then, inside either end of that, there will be one of these rods inside one of these. And I have found that by inserting a rod up one end, I can really add to its ability to snap back into position and increase its poundage. But what I want to do is, like I said, slit it down the middle and use that as one limb and that as the other limb. I was pulling these, and I'm guessing they're 30 to 40 pound pull, probably right at 35, just each on its own. And I know if I make a bow out of this, I guarantee you it's 75 or 80 pound pull when I'm done. But what I was thinking was, I will do this like a compound bow, but very cool. It'll be like 3 different bows built together. So what's going to happen is on the outside, it'll be the carbon fiber. But these pieces that I cut out, these side pieces, are great reinforcement pieces. And they'll be sewed on the inside of this to brace the whole thing. Because don't forget, I won't be holding it like a hockey stick like this. I'll be holding it with my hand like this, so that the arrow rest will actually get cut in here. I'll notch a spot and then use a piece of this side to make a plate. And that actually makes a really nice arrow notch. And I can actually step it out to be a little wider if I need to, but I won't need to. I like my arrow race just to be just barely there. And another one on the other side to help me keep my form even. I grew up with one that was ambidextrous, and at archery camp, my favorite bow was an ambidextrous bow. And I've always found it really nice. And it was one I entered competitions with there and dominated, and I loved it. Unfortunately, it belonged to them, not me, and I didn't get to keep it. However, I have plans to make a pretty sick one, so it's coming, guys. This is just the crappy prototype, but I'm going to unplug here and show you guys that, because this video is getting into some length here. This is what I was firing, and as you can see, I mean, it's pretty beefy. It is much, much bigger and much heavier than an aerial. In fact, I could fit more than one arrow shaft down the middle of this sucker. But I wanted to see what would happen if I fired it, and it took this long of an arrow to get to my maximum height, as far as my maximum draw, which was actually pretty good. So if I measure the draw height, I don't know, I haven't done that. If I measure the draw length, I'm guessing it's pretty far, because this isn't that short a bow. I mean, if you look at it, let me just look here. Well, geez, it comes to me belly. Just above the belly button by about 4 inches. Well, I'm actually 5'11". So it's basically, I'm guessing it's a 3.5 foot long bow. Okay, right about that. So if you do the math on that, you got 12, 24, you're looking at a 36-inch bow. Well, I'm guessing that that's just about right, because these cushions are about 1.5 feet each. There's my hand. That's an 8-inch span right there. Like I said, about 1.5 feet. So we're looking just under 3 for this bow, end to end. So on a 3-foot bow, it's probably going to have about that in reach. I should be able to achieve a 36-inch reach, sorry. And if I remember correctly, my full draw as an adult is right at 38 or 36 inches, what I like. I actually like to draw really far back and hold really far forward the bow and really be at the back of the bow. I like that. And I find I get the best speeds that way, and I'm happy with my shot. I find I get the best accuracy. So for me, the way I'm going to do this is just a knock-up, just to see if I could actually make it this easy and still prove out my principle. And it seems to work, because these pieces on their own don't have nearly as snappy a comeback as this. But This isn't that strong. The principle works, and it's produced a usable bow that literally is usable. Now, I couldn't use this for anything crazy, but I could definitely use it to kill small game. Squirrels, chipmunks, birds, that kind of stuff could easily be killed with this. And really, at that point, it's just a matter of building a bigger one. And I already have thicker materials in mind that can be readily accessed. Watching. So instead of this little tiny carbon fiber section, it's going to be the sides of this that are double reinforced. So these are quite a bit bigger, as you can see. And when the side sections are removed and I double reinforce them with that, you'll see this will be a really nice strength bow, because in the end, it'll be flexing this way as two separate layers that are each double reinforced. It'll be hollow in the middle, and it'll have two of these fiberglass rods down the middle with with carbon fiber fishing rods on the outside of those. And that'll make for a very strong bow. Just with one of those carbon fiber fishing rods, I was pulling at least 30 pounds per limb. I'm guessing at 60 pounds. And I'm guessing if I put two of those in a casing with this and bond it all together, the carbon rods can actually slide inside the fiberglass rods. They can slide separate, which is good, but they're mounted secure and permanent inside the handle. So they're all one piece, and this whole thing will flex and move, and each of the individual pieces will be able to flex and move within the bow, which should give it the fastest snapback and response of anything I could make DIY style. And this would seem to back that up, because with just this, I tried it with only one of these, and on its own, it had enough snapback, even though it has pathetically low draw poundage, to actually give me decent speed. I've seen 15-pound bows not give me that much speed of arrow with lighter arrows. For this one to be able to give me the speed of a 14 or 15-pound bow while having more like an 8-pound draw while you do it, that's pretty good. But really, it's firing pretty good. I mean, if you watch, it's not bad. So I'm actually going to give you guys a different perspective and let you see some of these actually going by, because in the end, that's probably the best thing I could do. So give me a second and I'll see if I can set that up for you, because in the end, the best thing I can do is show you the speed that they're impacting at, which isn't going to be significant. But don't forget, this is such a weak thing right here with these little tiny slats. Like, this is so weak. Had I used something like this would be a serious bow right now. But the goal is to explore the design. And those flexible tips are very much in keeping with a modern carbon fiber bow. And that's why I did it. They actually work awesome. So hold on. I'm just going to try and set you up in a slightly better spot, really. But I don't think there is one. I think if I just set you here so that you get a good view of that, and I put some more light up, and you guys should be able to get a good view from there of what I'm talking about. Because really, I've shown you how big this arrow is. It's huge, guys. It is not ideal. None of this is ideal. But I mean, it's nowhere near hurting a wall. I mean, I have a flat tip on it. And a strong bow would put that right through the wall. But it's weird. It's like, if I wanted to, I can take a really weak shot, and then I'll take progressively stronger shots. The first one was really weak. This one will be about as strong as I can give her. And I've had shots strong enough where it bounced off and knocked the pillow off without any trouble at all. With the 8-inch brace height that it's sitting at right now. So that's pretty good. And if I pull a smaller arrow, that's pretty decent. I mean, I didn't expect much. I didn't expect it to go very fast. I had beginner ones when I was young that sucked more than that and cost money. And this is why I wanted to show it, because in the end, this is just a prototype of one that's about to come. Only this is a prototype very similar to ones I've seen other people do, but I don't see them doing it the way I do. Okay, so for one, I have my stack in a very particular order. The two here are on the outside, and they're actually double of this. They're two of those rods together, so there's double stiffness there. In addition, I've added a third rod. So there's actually 3 of these in this bundle and one of these fiberglass ones. And really, if I were to just make this the ends of the bow and do it from here, all of a sudden I'm pushing real poundage here, guys. And I could do that quite easily and just make this the end of my bow. In fact, I've been thinking about it. And it's one of the things that I planned on doing. So I'm going to notch this and notch that, make it a much shorter bow that'll have double the power. And look at the flex on this. I mean, this is a bow where I can just pull on it and pull on it and pull on it and get as much power as I want, really. And that is what I like about it. It's so light in hand. I mean, you know, like you could just grab it and sling it over your shoulder and you'd never know it was there, and just swing it out around in front of you. And it's such a nice little bow. You know, if you were trekking around doing some hunting with this, there's no it interfering with you in the bush. It's the other where it just goes onto your back and vanishes. And the next thing you know, you're walking around with it. You've got the string. You need it. You pull it forward, rotate it around, and in a single motion, I've got the arrow rest where it needs to be up here. I've got my other hand coming out to take out my arrow, and it's pretty light, but I have these really flimsy tips on it. Don't forget, guys. I did this on purpose, but this lowers significantly the poundage of the bow because I'm not using it here where it's stiffest. There's not a lot of the bend happening here until I pull way back, which is what I like. If I just pull really light, I get a really light pull, but it actually snaps back fast enough to move the arrow, giving you a decent little shot. And if you really reef back hard, you get a much stronger shot. So the next bow I build will have this carbon fiber rod will be the thinnest thing on it, and there will be two of them, and it will have on top of it a carbon fiber shell. So it's fiberglass insert with carbon fiber shell outer times 2 per limb. On top of that, there will be carbon fiber slats outside of that limb, as I showed from this carbon fiber stick. So in the end, we're talking it's basically 3 separate layers of bow, and the middle layer is itself 2 separate, completely independent limbs that are all brought together up at the tip. And so that is a worthwhile design. I just thought I'd share that real quick. Over the next video series, I will show you the process. This one was so easy, guys. I'm showing it to you here. I've explained it to you in good enough detail. You could just make your own and see for yourself what I'm talking about. If you find this one way too weak and you wanted a short bow, snip it off here, snip it off there, and now you have your center bow that has double the poundage. And you'll have a 30-pound bow or so, 24 to 30, depending on how you do it and what you've done and all that stuff, and what you use and how tight you make it and your brace height and all that stuff. But it should be right in that range. Now, with this one, I'm looking 80 to 110, 120 is what my goal is. This one, my goal was to make it as light as humanly possible, but still be able to make a shot. And this is just it. So I've got these set up on the back wall here, as you can see. And as a last kind of act, I just wanted to go out to the edge here and count out the feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, I was right. We're looking 20 feet from edge to edge. So right around 20 feet. Which is, you know, about 7 meters. So 7 meters, 6.5 meters, that's not bad. But I see guys on YouTube all the time showing DIY bows shooting 7 meters, not so accurately. This isn't shooting an arrow, guys. This isn't anywhere close to shooting an arrow. This is shooting a hugely heavy, giant-sized piece of carbon fiber that's 3 times the size the arrow should be, but it's close in length. The arrow should be this long. I want nice long arrows for my nice long bow, and that's because it has a really high draw length, which I really like. I do not want to change that. I also don't want to change that it's fairly light at the beginning of its pull. Now with this bow, that won't be the case. So I'm actually making 2 bows right away, and I knew I was gonna, and this is why. I'm gonna actually continue to work with this. I have one more fiberglass piece that I'm gonna inlay into that, and then I'm going to snip it. Heck no. I'm going to make it the other way around, where I'm actually going to brace it higher up, take it apart, brace it to here. So it's only really these tips that do it, I've made it to it so it's a full foot here. And I shouldn't have done that. I should have gone with about 10 inches. And I can see right away that that meant that there's not much bend happening in the middle here. And at one end, it's a little off because of the way I've taped it. So I have to redo it anyway. But this was just a throw together quick prototype to see if it could work and to see if I could get decent speeds out of it. And the fact is, it's not spectacular, but for the poundage of bow that it is, it's the best one I've had because it snaps back with real force. I mean, I remember firing my 25-pound bow and that string hits my hand just as hard. And that's what's blowing my mind because it's no way it's 25 pounds pull. Maybe at the back of the pull really hard, if I pull on it, reef on it really hard, it might get to about that, but that's it. And I don't believe it's actually even that strong. With this on that, this being much, much stiffer, watch this. I mean, you'll see this is much, much stiffer, but this kind of material makes a really good limb, guys. And this is cheap carbon fiber, so it's fairly stiff. But that's actually good because once we rivet it and epoxy it and wrap it, it'll be so tough it won't even matter. And even if it did shatter, the bow could continue to be used in a survival situation over and over and over and over without much of a reduction in power. Because of all that, this design is excellent, but it's going to mean I need more material. I have enough to finish this one, but I already know it's too weak for my tastes. It proved the point that the design that I was thinking about using for my weakest bow will definitely work, but I like a very strong bow on the weak side. I like a 50 to a 55. I find anything lower than that, it just feels like there's nothing there. If I'm stepping up to an 80 or a 90, a 90 starts to feel like there's too much there, and I don't want to pull 100 pounds every time I draw an arrow. But I'm looking for 70, 75, 80, 100, 110 on the outside for my heavier bow. Then I want to have a lighter bow that's much faster, much more agile. One's for bigger game, one's for smaller game. One is a short bow, essentially. The other is a real full-on longbow that will be right about this tall, guys. So it's looking to be a full longbow. So let me put the two of these together and you can see the difference end to end. I'm looking to have an extra foot on this bow. So from a 3-foot bow, or just under 3 foot, to an honest to God 4-foot bow. That's pretty serious, and that's going to give me a 48-inch length of bow. Well, that really is getting me into longbow territory, which this one at 3 feet is not. That's getting me into horsebow territory, and for that, it is appallingly weak. However, it's not done, and I just threw it out together out of scrap material I have around, and I have more, and I have stronger, and so that's going to happen, but as I do it, I realize how short I really want this bow for a couple of reasons. One, the longer arrow implies more weight, which means the bigger this bow is, the stronger it's going to have to be to sling the arrow. Already I've seen I want to snip it down. Then I'm going to take those two bits that I snipped down and affix them right here, epoxy style, and they'll only stick out about 4 inches. So that will brace this tip, and the whole thing will be locked tight. It will have the flexible outer tips, but I'm probably going to brace those and use double on this. Also, I overlap these. If you look here, there's one of these guys because they were off an umbrella, and there's another one here. And the reason is these are actually quite long, and each one of these runs to about here. And because I want it shorter, the other one rolls back the other way and its end is here. So because of that, I can take all this apart, put these two carbon rods together facing the opposite direction till they actually touch end to end and are fully wrapped together as one. And at that point, it'll double the strength out at the tips. So that's what I'm going to do next. Other than that, I'm going to leave it the same. And I'm going to put one more piece of bracing in for my handle. And I'm going to put some of the middle into this tube. You might think, but I won't, because this is not fiberglass, carbon fiber, or any of that. It won't work very well. But upstairs, I have the handle for this that I cut off of this with my Dremel, which means it's actually uniform in thickness once it gets to this point in the rod. And so I cut it off there. But what that means is I have a handle that's nice and softly padded and even has an adjustable rest for me. I'm going to cut it and use it on this. And you'll see that that will reinforce this whole section. And I'm going to insert it. I might even use a piece of PVC to really reinforce this. But in the end, that'll mean doubling the poundage of this bow. Easy peasy. And then some. Double it as a base, basically, out at the tips. And then just structurally reinforce this and put a good handle. And I think once I do that, this will actually be a sick little 35, 40-pound bow and get me where I need to be. At the very least, it'll be 30. Right now, I know at full crank, it's at least a 20-pound bow. I fired lots of them, and they actually impact my wrist about the exact same as this little guy. It's right 18 to 20, 100% I guarantee it. So I'm going to cut this one here. It's half an hour of me babbling, guys, but this is a cool little process, and anybody who's ever done this will tell you it's a lot of fun to make your own bow and have it take an hour and see the next thing you know, you're firing arrows across the room. Now, that's the other part of this. When I shrink this, it gets much more powerful because I will have doubled the stiffness of these plus shortened it by a full foot. And when I shorten that bow a full foot, and that becomes a 30-inch bow or a 24-inch bow or a 28-inch bow, suddenly this huge arrow is way too big and needs to be shrunk to about here. And that would be the correct size arrow for that on a shorter pull. And that'd be great because it would take apart the back end of this and make it, this is the heaviest portion. Really, if I wanted it to weight properly, I should be firing it this way, but that would suck for aerodynamics. So in every way, these are horrible arrows. I'm getting really lousy speeds with them. And I knew I would. I'm getting really lousy accuracy with them, and I knew I would. And even still, the majority of my shots were hits, and it fired fast enough to knock the pillows down when I wanted it to. But not consistently. I couldn't always knock the pillows down because it's hitting just barely hard enough, probably about 45 feet per second. If I do the math, it's traveling right around 45 feet in a second, judging by the amount of time it takes it to get around the room. That's about 45 feet per second. So that's a pretty good guess. But that's pretty slow. It might even be as high as 55 feet per second or 60 feet per second. Now, I know on a full pull, it went poof and was across the room, lickety-split. That's a half a second trip. I guarantee you that's not 1/1000. You can watch it and you'll see. Well, at half a second, that's 20 feet in half a second. That's 40 feet per second. Okay. So at a base, that's what I'm calling it, 40 feet per second. However, I know for an empirical fact that it was right around that, about half a second travel time at 20 feet. Well, that's actually not bad. But at this crappy poundage, if I got 12 pounds at 40 feet per second, that's spectacular. And if I double that to 24 pounds and we're able to get 80 feet per second, that'd be the best 24-pound target bow ever made almost. It's really in the ballpark. And once I modify this design and make it stronger, it's even better. It'll snap back even faster and have a stronger pull weight all at the same time. Plus fire weaker arrows, which will up the feet per second. That's what's shocking me. Call this double the weight that it needs to be, given that there's aerodynamic drag and all kinds of crap and it's bouncing around off these big, huge humps here. I wanted to show you how deep those can be. They're no joke. They're big humps for me to fire off of. And they keep knocking the arrow out. But even still, I'm able to fire accurately and hit the pillows 3 out of 4 times. That's pretty damn good. I've made cheap ones and tried to fire these before, and they did horribly. This one actually will fire it across the room and do it accurately without the arrow even dropping off. Okay, so I'm guessing it's more than 40 feet per second is possible. Definitely. I'm guessing it's more like 80 feet per second if I were to fire the proper arrows right now, maybe 60 or 65. On the conservative side, it's 60 for sure. Well, 60 is actually really nice. 60 feet per second is, I can hit you with this in the head with the carbon rod and you won't die. I could even hit you with the arrowhead on it and you still wouldn't die because it wouldn't penetrate your skull. But if I hit you in the eye, you're done. Now, if I double the poundage of that and shorten it and make it really strong, I could run it up to maybe 90, 100, 130, 140, 120 feet per second. That'd be more than fast enough. It's almost too fast. I don't really need it to be that lethal. What I want this one to do is just be fun for plinking in the house. And when I make little arrows, I have a bigger room here. all I did was go this way to this way, which isn't very far. And if I stand on this wall, you can clearly see that it's farther. This wall is much closer than that far wall. I've measured this before, and it is in fact 32 feet, which, if you're doing the math, represents a speed, a distance, of right around 10 meters. Well, 10 meters isn't that far, but it's not that short either. 10 meters is in hunting range, believe it or not. Look, we've got dogs. They're caged. We'll be hunting them later. No, I'm just kidding. We love the dogs. I love each and every one. This is Apollo, and this is Odin, and that over there is Thor, god of thunder. They are all awesome, and I love each and every one of them. But they do not get hurt. So if we have a basement, and it's actually much deeper than this, because it spans the whole width of the house, and there's a staircase here that's missing. So when we go downstairs, I could maybe pull out 40 feet at most. But 40 feet is only, 12 and a half, 13 meters. And it's really not very far. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to focus on not the distance, but the speed that we can get is everything. I don't care about the poundage of the bow. It's the speed of the arrow. The object of this experimentation is to get the best arrow speed I possibly can out of the weakest poundage. And right now, from the bows I've seen, for them to be this weak, I win. Right now, I'm winning. If anybody else wants to compete, the rules are as follow. You have to have at least an 8-inch flexible tip. The bow has to be 3 feet long, as is this one. It has to have no more than an 8-inch brace height. My span is actually exactly 8 inches. This is exactly an 8-inch brace height. And it has to be made of no more than 1 fiberglass and 2 of these carbon rods that are not doubled over for at least 10 inches on each tip. So you have a single speed tip and then a stronger body as it moves progressively inward. You're allowed to use up to and including 3 carbon fiber rods in here, but one of them can't be any farther than your brace height where this cutoff is. It can't run any farther than that. So you can strengthen this with 3 carbon fiber rods and one of these guys. And that's what I've done. So it's 3 carbon fiber and a fiberglass, and they actually work very well together. I am going to cut this one here, and you'll see in the future, this is going to be a really neat set of bows, guys, because a survival bow should be easy to make out of things you have around. This is all stuff that I was able to get literally put together for free. These came out of a carbon fiber and umbrella that broke. These came out of landscaping stakes that were laying on the side of the road. There were 2 of them. I grabbed both of them. They were not on a site or on a lawn. They were free to grab, so I did. This was paracord. I actually found it, and it's glow-in-the-dark paracord, which is really nice, and it's the type that doesn't seem to really stretch. I must have fired a dozen shots with it at least, and it didn't stretch at all. Then I put it aside for half an hour, then fired another dozen shots, and I noticed when I did, it's got a slightly different shape. Like I said, I kind of need to redo the taping and rebrace it, but it worked very, very well. I also could make this a recurve bow if I braced it like this and made these tips a little stiffer, and I'm thinking that's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to play around with different ideas and different ways to do it, but one of the bows I'm going to make will be a recurve. One of them is like this. It's just going to be a standard bow, the easiest possible bow you could make. Then I'm going to make a recurve bow. Same type of deal, and show you the difference in speed. If I get the chance, that'll be fun. And then I'm going to make this guy. This is my main focus. This is going to be brutal. This one will be really high poundage, should be nice and strong. Inside, I'll have all the pieces supported, but like, share, and subscribe. I'll show you that one in a future video. Just remember, this is a much bigger arrow. I mean, look at, I'm almost 6 feet. I'm 5'11", and it's almost waist high on me. Not quite. It's a pretty tall arrow. In fact, this would be the right size arrow for a longbow. Imagine firing, say, a 700 grain arrow, maybe 650. That's about what this feels to me. And if that's right, I should be firing half that out of this guy, which would give it almost double the speed, believe it or not, a lot more speed. And that would be awesome. And if that happened, I'll be getting really amazing feet per second. I mean, if I was able to pull 80 feet per second out of this thing with this low of poundage, that's actually really impressive. And it denotes a good design. It means that my theory worked. And it definitely did. I could verify it right away. And the way I did it was I made one just of the single carbon fiber, then pulled it, tested it for poundage, tested it for when the string hit my wrist, believe it or not, to see how much it hurt. That was always one guaranteed measure to tell how much poundage is on a bow. Whack your ring with the string, and you will know how much it hurts. Let me tell you. Keith out.